And welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop Henchman, Chairman. As always, John Gapso on the big board. I'm your host, Pat Ford, the proud chair of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island. Every week, we cite the purposes for this show. We want to give the Libertarian community an opportunity to meet our wonderful down-ballot candidates. Folks, the future is now. We want to challenge them to incorporate lunch pail voter issues and to be able to present them through a libertarian prism, a libertarian perspective. And as of equal importance, we seek to establish a bond between affiliates nationwide and, well, now worldwide, where we, through mutual understanding, mutual aid, mutual cooperation, folks in Maine and New York and even here in Rhode Island come to know and understand the candidates and their respective importance to their communities, whether it be this week in the great state of Pennsylvania, California, Alaska, and eventually we'll get to meet some of the folks from the Libertarian affiliates from around the world. Now, we've always focused on special elections. This has been an interesting period because special elections continue to pop up whack-a-mole style around the nation. On that note, if you have a special election coming up, regardless whether it's a town board, on up through, well, some would say the presidency, please reach out to us, Pat Ford, all over Libertarian social media. Just give us a call. If you talk to your region rep, talk to your state chair, we'd love to have you on the air. We want to give everybody a chance to really present themselves to the Libertarian Party around the world. There are no less than 4 special elections taking place in the great state of Pennsylvania. One gentleman we had on just a few short weeks ago. Well, it turns out there were 3 more. So we're going to try a panel conversation tonight. Joining us tonight is Tim McMaster, Pennsylvania 48, Nathan Covington, Pennsylvania 22, and state rep candidate Robb Luther, Pennsylvania 59. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome, if you will, to your first appearance on Candidates Corner on LPTV.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go around the room a little bit, do a little bit of introduction. We're going to take a little extra time tonight. By the way, coming on the show in the very end is none other than Sasha Cohen. We are going to give him an opportunity, LPTV style, to spike the football in the fullest sense. It is part of our mantra here that we celebrate success. Success can be defined in many ways. Running a great campaign, that's a success. Presenting libertarian issues to perhaps a part of the nation, a community that may never have experienced them before, that's a success. And of course, winning that election, well, that's a special success. Let's enjoy and revel at them. So let's start from, we'll start, and first off, we'll go with Tim McMaster. Tim, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your libertarian moment and the office that you're running for, and a little bit about your region?
Sure, Pat. Thanks again for having us on. Really appreciate that. I am in my day job an IT analyst for a large healthcare company whose name I would prefer not to mention. Apart from that, I live on a farm that we raise dairy goats, meat goats, dairy cattle, and meat cattle with my lovely wife and my 2 teenage sons. And I came to libertarianism fairly early in my lifetime. It was my late teens. I was at the York Fair cutting class, as one tends to do in their teens. And I saw the Libertarian Party of York that had a stand there. And I looked at what they had, what they offered, what their platform was. And I said, you know what? That's me. That's what I've been pretty much my entire life to that point. And I said, now I know for certain now that I have a home and I have a party. And the seat that I'm running for now has been vacated by the tragic passing of Senator Dave Arnold, who himself was finishing out the term for Senator Fulmer, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who got into some legal trouble. So this is kind of the Spinal Tap seat.
I was about to ask, do you play drums?
I did, in fact, actually. So I told the wife if I explode in the state house that to just dust for vomit, as they say.
And what's the most important thing in an untimely passing of a libertarian man? Please clear my browser. Proceed.
Oh, my browser's pretty clear. I use a VPN. It's all good. Yeah, so the seat that we're running for is pretty special to me because I found out that I am the first libertarian candidate to ever run for this seat, and the first libertarian candidate in this district, because this district, as you can see from the map, there has been gerrymandered, you know, to madness essentially. So since the district has kind of been in this configuration, I would be the first libertarian candidate running for that seat. So I'm pretty proud of that. We got unanimous support from the Lebanon Party, the Capital Region, and the York affiliate. So got a pretty strong backing, I should say. So we're excited.
Talk to us about the sort of the makeup of your district, rural, industrial, urban. What is the quote unquote county seat, and what's the economy based on loosely?
So largely, the economy in the area is it's a manufacturing and agriculture based. There are some areas of heavy industry. There are some large scale farms that actually encompass the area, more your factory farms, not the small farm, kind of like we have. But it's really overall, it's a mix of every kind of business that the state has to offer. Like it's really kind of a almost like a melting pot of the entire state.
What issues resonate with folks? What issues resonate with folks in your community? And obviously, COVID's a big part of that. And talk about your area's reaction to the pandemic.
So our area has been pretty much, we want to be open. As far as closing down everything, they didn't, for the most part, want to. I mean, we understood that there was a need for it, that there was a need for some safety precautions and to wear a mask if you were at risk and to take the necessary precautions. But as far as shutting everything down, there was a lot of resistance to that in this area, myself included. I didn't really want to shut down anything either. So that's been kind of the reaction to COVID. The biggest issues that we're seeing from talking to people here is property taxes and state income taxes. They're just, as I'm sure you can figure out, they're just too damn high. And we need to cut spending before we start raising taxes.
Is there an appetite and a desire for a third party, a third choice, if you will? And the race itself, what do you have to do to win? Is there a win number associated with your campaign?
I'd love to say that there is a specific number that we need to get, but this is in fact a 4-person race. There's a Democrat, a Republican, myself, the Libertarian, and then an independent as well. So it's really, excuse me, it's really a fractured voter base that's going to be out there. So I think we have a really strong chance to win this. The Lebanon Party is really, and they just formed this year, the Lebanon affiliate. They just formed this year, and they are really stepping up to the plate as far as getting out there and putting signs out and talking to people and doing the canvassing, doing the street work that needs to be done to get the people to understand and know that, yes, there's an election. Even if you're not a Democrat or Republican, you can vote in it. And by the way, here's an excellent candidate that we think you'd like.
Excellent. Are you able to go door to door? I mean, in what manner are you sort of conducting the campaign?
We have been. We've been going to door. Just kind of. I have a mask in my back pocket, but I don't put it on unless somebody opens the door wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. And when we go door to door and knock on people's houses, they're not answering the door wearing a mask, which to me is a very good sign. But we also been out in the city of Lebanon, the county seat there, and talking to the local businesses, and the majority of them haven't required masks. And then if you walk in without a mask, nobody says anything. If you want to, there are people that show up with masks on, which great, that's your right to do that. But the businesses aren't really requiring it.
Mm-hmm. Vaccinations in your area, how are they being conducted? Are they being conducted? Do you get much vaccine shaming? Do you get folks?
I get some vaccine shaming. People will tell me all the time, like, I need to get vaccinated. I've got kids, and you got to care about your kids. And I've looked into it, and we don't have any comorbidities. My kids are young and extremely healthy. And if I'm not out campaigning, I'm here raising goats and cows. So I don't really go anywhere where there's necessarily a transmission vector. So we're choosing not to vaccinate. WellSpan, the big healthcare provider in the area, they do have several clinics set up, some drive-through clinics and stuff. And I'd say it's probably about 50-50 as far as people who are vaccinating and people who are like, I'll either wait to vaccinate or I'm just not going to vaccinate at all.
Excellent. Okay. Well, it's great to get that sense of understanding. Let's see who's up next. Robb Luther, come on up. The price is right. Tell us again about a little bit about your background, how you arrived at Liberty, and how you, what was that light bulb that went over your head when you decided to join the Libertarian movement? And then let's get into a discussion of your district.
Okay, sure. So my name's Robb Luther, 59th District. I grew up here. I'm 9th generation. So we've been here since pre-Revolutionary War. The area is very special to me. I love it here. That's why I never left. So raising my family here has been just something that's been incredible. My wife moved up here from Texas. She loves it here too. So it's just an amazing area. I'm a partner for a digital marketing firm in Pittsburgh, and I came to the Libertarian Party. I've always kind of viewed myself with a libertarian slant, but just this past year, the way the election went and everything, I couldn't. I've been a lifelong Republican, but I couldn't embrace that anymore. And I'm like, I got to make my switch. I got to be committed and get my number over to the Libertarian Party and put my support over there. So this past year is what made me do that push. And I'm brand new to the Libertarian Party, so I don't have a lot of the background and knowledge of the Libertarian history that a lot of other people do. So I'm definitely coming into it with a different set of eyes. But it just, personal freedom just makes so much sense. And we seem to continually be losing that as time goes on. And that's something that I think we need to grab onto and cherish. So.
Yeah, and tell us about your district, if you will. What's the makeup, the economy, institutions?
Yeah, we're a very red district. Agriculture, oil and gas, fracking. So there's a lot of different things going on in our district as well. Even in Latrobe, although depending on how the map goes, different parts. There's steel. We used to be a steel area, and there's some tool and die, and so there's a lot of different things going on in the district.
When I think Latrobe, I think beer. What am I missing here?
Rolling Rock.
Okay,
yeah.
there you go. Do they still make the green bottles?
That's not there anymore. They were bought and moved out. So.
Oh, now that's a loss in culture. What style of campaigning are you able to do in respect to how folks react to in-person door knocking, in-person events?
Yeah, so we got a little bit of a slow start, and I come from a digital marketing background. So I initially started out joining some groups on Facebook, and I started dialogues with town groups. So, for example, one in Ligonier Unpolished, I joined that group and had great discussions with people, and just talking to people in general, friends, family, people that I meet. It's great to get their perspective. We were planning on starting a door knocking campaign this weekend. However, I got diagnosed with COVID, so that put a little bit of a damper on the door knocking campaign this weekend. So we're going to push that off another week or so.
I'm laughing and crying at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
Are you okay? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I have a fever, chills. Luckily, I'm not like somebody that really took it hard. I have a friend of mine. He took it really hard and had to be hospitalized. Luckily, he's okay pulling through, but it was a scary moment for him. So, yeah, but.
And in terms of the overall economy in where you live, obviously property taxes, we mentioned earlier, are a considerable issue.
That was a big thing that came up. So, talking to people, taxes were a big deal. Voter fraud was a huge deal. Like a lot of people were concerned with voter fraud. and vaccinations, passports. So those were some big concerns that were coming up from the people that I was speaking with.
Now that's fascinating to me, because by and large, the social aspects, if you will, of the pandemic are looming large in your community, as opposed to sort of what I'll refer to as the lunch pail issues. What's generating that? Is that national media, local media, high incidences, if you will, in your community?
As far as vaccines go, you mean?
No, just in general. This has been a fascinating study for me over the last 7 or 8 months, because I have, there's a certain formula to a show like this. We're trying to find out about what issues resonate with voters, and different areas are focused. If I can quote, the great Bill Clinton quote from years ago, it's the economy, stupid. And then other areas are focused almost entirely on the pandemic. And I'm wondering, is that as a result of the politics of the region? Is that a result of media?
Yeah, I think so. We're in an extremely pro-Trump area, and a lot of Trump supporters felt like the election was completely unfair. I think that's kind of what drives that side of the argument. And then there's also that whole political side with COVID too, where it just almost goes arm in arm. It's interesting how, you have a Democrat and a Republican Party that just so toe the line on all their views. When they believe one thing, you get the whole package. You get the whole package of that belief system.
Mm-hmm. Wow. No, that's fascinating. What is the single biggest part of the economy in your district?
Probably, given Somerset, I'd say probably agriculture or natural gas.
Is there fracking taking place within your district?
There is some fracking taking place as well, yeah.
And how has the agricultural community reacted to that? You generally speaking, if you watch the movies, you get a lot of the scare media, in terms of what fracking can do to an area's geography. There's very little attempt to follow up on that or generate the truth. And so from either perspective, I'm not really sure. I haven't run into a lot of people who are living in the middle of that. Has there been much impact on the economy as well as the farming community?
Well, I think it comes down to the fear of fracking, where you just, several years ago, I went to a place in West Virginia where they were doing some fracking, and the company that was doing it just did it so bad. They did things so wrong, and it caused a lot of damage. So I think fracking in general has that fear around it. But if you do it correctly, I think it's a viable source of energy.
Right. Understood. Nathan Covington, you are running for District 22, State Senate, as I understand. Talk to us. Tell us a little about yourself and your background and your libertarian moment, and about your constituency in the district that you're attempting to run in.
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show. First of all, it's an honor to be part of this. I really don't believe it myself yet, but I see myself on the screen, so here we are. I'm in my township here. I'm an elected auditor. I was appointed auditor in 2018, and then I ran as an independent, and I won a write-in election in 2019. So now my township has me for about, I think, another 6 years. It was a 6-year term that I was elected to. So I'm in. My family is a patriot, family as well. My grandmother's side traced back to the Boston Tea Party. I have a relative that was throwing tea over the side of the boat. So my family is into that. But I guess my real political activity started when I first moved into my town here. I moved into a town where the powers that be did not have a website, so I went and registered mytownship.com, and I started a website for the people in my community, and that's kind of how I started everything that I've got going now is just focusing on helping people in my community. It started out with a business directory and an event calendar, and just taking care of some of the basics. And then I guess in 2010 I started that website. In 2015 I actually gave the domain name to my township because I wanted my township to start using the website and looking more professional. So I kind of gave the township their website, and I registered a community domain name instead. So then I switched all of my business directory stuff and all the event calendar over to the community website. And that's when I started adding, local news and some of my opinions into the mix. And that's when people kind of started, encouraging me to do more of that. It's the kind of thing where a lot of people in my town are aware of the corruption in their local government, but no one really had the tools to do anything about it. And when I got in there, I think it's because I'm a web designer and I am able to make most of my money from outside of town. So I'm kind of an exception to my area, but it's been a fun ride.
You give us an excellent starting point for a serious issue for candidates, and that, of course, is involvement in the community. To your credit, you found a way to leverage your skills to contribute to the community. You're a far nicer person than I am. I might have held the website for hostage, see if I could wreck the town economy, and then donate part of it to the Libertarian Party. I'm just kidding, kind of.
Yeah, that crossed my mind for sure.
Folks, and again, it's interesting to do it in sort of a three-way conversation. But for example, Rob, had you been involved in the community? What have you done to sort of build up your visibility?
I mean, aside from living here all my life, years ago when my daughter was in softball as a softball coach, was involved with scouts with the boys. So different things along those lines. But that's pretty much the extent. I've done some classes at the library to teach people how to build websites and things like that. But I was never doing anything to gain exposure. I guess it was just things that I did either for the kids or that I just like to do to help people out.
Well, those are actually the best things to do because there's a sincerity attached to that is not equated with, if you will, appearance building. We've had an incredible cross-section of candidates here, and essentially within the libertarian movement, you find two groups of people who quietly are active in their community through mentoring roles, coaching, things like that, and that's wonderful. And there's a sincerity and a dedication attached to that. And then there's other folks who have been activist leaders on different causes in the community, and they're raised their visibility that way. Either way, those are great ways of engaging, and you're doing the right things. What's the old line? You're doing it when no one else is watching very often. And people recognize that. People see that, and it resonates with them because it's, you're giving of yourself. And that is particularly as a libertarian, when we talk about replacing government structure, overarching government figures with people in the community taking up the slack, engaging in the type of activities that in some communities might be paid for and bought for considerations. That's called walking the walk. So I don't diminish that. That's incredibly important to do. Tim, how about you? What have you done to sort of, both during the campaign and beforehand, to sort of raise your name recognition, your image? How have you been involved with the community?
Well, prior to the campaign, I wasn't really all that concerned with getting my name out there and being kind of exposed in the community. My community at large around here knows me as I'm the goat guy. And any kind of questions that people have about goats or raising goats, or they just want to stop and see the baby goats, they would just come to me. We would forever be having people just randomly stopping in and like, oh, can we look at your goats? And yeah, I'm not gonna turn that down. I love hanging out with my goats too. Since we started the campaign, we've been getting out every 3 or 4 days a week in the evenings when people are getting home from work, as well as on the weekends. We've just been going out and just walking the streets and talking to people. The proverbial shaking hands and kissing babies, although in the COVID era, that's not
Right.
kind of frowned upon.
Yeah.
And one big thing that we're doing is tomorrow, actually, we're doing a trash cleanup in Lebanon City. We're volunteering to go, and I bought bags, I bought gloves, I bought the little pickup gripper things, and we're just going to go and clean up trash around Lancaster City because that's a thing that we thought needed to be done. So we're just going to go and do it. We're volunteering in the community. We're not asking for any kind of press coverage or money or any kind of publicity for it, apart from mentioning it now. But it was a thing that we felt we needed to do to give back to the city.
Excellent. And again, you guys are sort of writing the show here, because the next question, that I talk about with candidates is developing a bond and understanding a commonality with folks in the community is so important, particularly as a libertarian. You mentioned, of course, raising goats, and it's, for someone like me who's a city kid as it gets, I laugh and I chuckle, but you're part of an agrarian, a rural environment, and you're legitimately a part of it. So, when you reflect on the impact of state, federal, and local behavior on the family farm, on the small micro farmer, as the big guys in DC like to call it now, how important is it that you speak the same language and you're known as an individual who shares the same lifestyle as other members in your community?
Oh, it's critically important, especially when people, they come to me with questions. We've been on this farm now for 17 years almost, and prior to that, it was my wife's mom and dad's farm. So we've essentially been in this community for, I would say, probably pushing 3.5 decades. So
Right.
People know us in the community as like, oh, we have farm questions, or we're the people that are doing the weird things like spreading our own compost on the fields, or taking care of our own manure and stuff. So we freely give out the information that we have, because I've always felt that knowledge not shared is lost. So people in our community know if they have any complaints about the way government's going, if they come to me, I'm the guy that's probably going to know it first because I'm so ensconced in it. And this was before the campaign.
Excellent. You get the big win coming up, and you're headed to Harrisburg, a city that embraced the term bankruptcy not that long ago, literally and figuratively. And I'm not sure a lot of people around the nation know that, and to a large degree, Pennsylvania has had great success on a local level in a variety of endeavors. And yet, as a state, in part because of, Philadelphia, has faced critical financial challenges, the likes of which are only being talked about in other states. What's your let's go with Tim. Tim, what you get there? Let's say you win. Obviously, we're going to cast aside the fact that you're not going to be part of a big caucus, but you get your dreamed committee assignment. Tim, let's go through all three of you. Tim, then Robb, then Nathan. What type of committee work would you like to do on behalf of the people of your district and on behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Anything having to do with agriculture is where I would, if I had my druthers, that's where I would go. That's where I have the most experience. That's where I have the most passion. So anything pertaining to agriculture.
And Nathan, how about you?
I'd like agriculture too, but just to go with a different answer, I'd like to get involved in currency and the economy.
Interesting. And from what perspective? What's motivating you there, and where do your interests lie?
I think people need to know more about fiat currency and what's happening to our country on a national level with the central bank.
Mm-hmm. And as far as the policies, if you will, of the state of Pennsylvania, because you're running for a state job, again, Pennsylvania's financial issues are national in scope, particularly with Harrisburg's situation. Do you think that folks in Pennsylvania, and this is, I'm not trying to be acting pejorative here, this is sort of a universal question, really, but we're in a period where deficit spending is once considered the act of an emergency and crisis, is now considered normal. I got into a argument with our state governor. Rhode Island's a very small state. I do have press credentials, if you will, in Rhode Island. So we ended up getting into a mini debate in the middle of a press conference because our governor, who, by the way, now is the United States Secretary of Commerce, an appalling thought if you know what I know, was talking about the need to run deficits in order to recover from the economy. And she pointed out that, of course, those nations that had run, austerity budgets often ended up in financial collapse. And I didn't have, because it was a press conference, I couldn't point out to her that the state of Rhode Island, despite its hallucinatory government and delusions of grandeur, does not print currency and therefore cannot float its own. Do you think the people of Pennsylvania understand these issues as far as a voting culture and what deficits do to an economy?
I mean, just to take a step back, and one of the more popular conversations that I've been having with people after they found out that I'm throwing my hat in the ring for this District 22 Senate race is everyone calls me up and they say, "Hey, you're going to DC." And I'm like, "No, it's Harrisburg." And they're like, "What's that? What do you mean?" So just having that conversation with the first 5 or 10 people was like really, really alarming for me, just to have to explain it.
Yeah. No, I feel that it does. And this is a question for any of you. Is a civics education part of the graduation requirements, if you will, in the state of Pennsylvania? I'm not being facetious. I just wonder.
It wasn't. No, it's scary. It's scary.
There are some. Yeah. I know my Harrington, who just graduated, he did go through a civics class where he read the Constitution. They studied the Constitution, so that was positive. But it's interesting because I had similar questions where people were asking me about my position on the border, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to.
The border of New Jersey. We try to keep
exactly.
As a native of New Jersey, I wouldn't want me on our border. So
yeah.
But seriously, people. Wow, this is why I love these conversations, because each part of the country just has its own, these issues just sort of bubble up. But Rob, while you're up, what's your dream assignment? Where do you see yourself becoming active on the statewide level?
My passion would be to find a way to reduce and eliminate property tax. I want people to be able to own their own property in Pennsylvania and not rent it from the government. So anything I can do to make that happen would be a primary goal of mine. That's where I'd put my efforts.
Excellent. Well, and that brings up another question that's of incredible concern. And as a country, we've moved away from a local emphasis on education and a local control. We've ceded responsibility in most states to these. Again, you talk about algorithms. Facebook would be ashamed not to have the kind of algorithms in place that state educational fundings do. It can get pretty crazy. What's that like in Pennsylvania? And well, Rob, you go first. I mean, how has your district benefited or suffered as a result of this crazy statewide formulas?
Well, it's interesting. During the whole COVID thing, I feel like we've embraced technology in the past 9 months quicker than we have in the past 10 years. And it's almost like COVID forced innovation. Whereas I feel like this should be happening from a market perspective and not from a pandemic perspective. But just what happened with COVID can really show you what we've been able to do with education in such a short period of time, as far as making it more accessible and just embracing technology.
Mm-hmm. I often refer to as COVID as libertarian proof of concept, in that allowing the free market to react in a time of crisis would have in libertarian philosophy in place prior to COVID wouldn't have prevented it by any means, but would have mitigated, I believe, the severity of it based on healthcare issues, educational issues at all. So I'm with you on that. How generally are the schools in your district?
Yeah, I can't say anything but good things about our schools. Actually, we are fortunate. We're just in a good area, good schools. The schools have always done right by us. Now that being said, I would love to get less federal oversight, no federal oversight, and I'd like to bring all those decisions down to the local level, not at the federal state level.
Right. No, understood. Tim, how about you? What's your thoughts on education in your district? And I guess you're in Senate 48. What are your thoughts there, and how education is funded?
So education is funded here pretty much the same way it is everywhere else. It's property taxes that get funneled into the school boards. And kind of what Rob was saying earlier, like I think the best plan would be going forward would be with the sense of innovation, that increasing school choice for parents so that they can educate their kids in the way that the kids are best going to learn. This pandemic has showed us that it is possible. We can innovate, and we can kind of do it on the fly, because nobody really planned for this. So I know both of my kids are cyber schooling, and they love it. They're getting more out of it. There's not the stress, the peer pressure, or anything like that. And the school district that we're in, they're sort of restructuring their classes so that they can have smaller classes, fewer staff, and they're cutting down their expenses, which is absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think it will reduce our property taxes any, but it's good that they're tightening their belts. So somebody in the school board gets it.
Right. No, that's outstanding. Now, Nathan, I don't think you've gone on this. What are your thoughts in terms of education, how it's funded? What kind of quality of education is being delivered in your area?
Just an observation or concern for everyone to chew on. Our school district has been pushing a lot of people into cyber, situations, hybrid, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of the kids would end up not going to school because their friends weren't there. They would go and sit in the class. It's empty. They'd be texting their parents going, can you come pick me up because no one's here. So school attendance, sorry.
Yikes.
Yeah. So school attendance dropped really poorly. And then the other issue that I ran into was whenever there was a test in school, the kids that were in school had to take the test like they were taking a legitimate test, close their books, taking a test. The kids that stayed home to do the cyber school because they didn't, they didn't feel safe going into school that day or whatever, they got to go home, take the test with their open books, open notes, and basically cheat all they want to on their tests.
So there appears to be very little control on the situation. I don't want to spend all our time talking about education, but if I could present a choice to the three of you, we'll go in whatever order you want. Status quo, vouchers, or charter schools. What are your thoughts? Just give me a vote on each.
I'll take vouchers.
I think vouchers.
I think we need to get rid of the Department of Education.
I'll go with all three of those. Not just, and that's, by the way, that's a reflection that's almost universal amongst now, I think, the 100 or so candidates that we've spoken to across the country. We've been in a whole lot of states, and it's universal thought. And most of the people that I've spoken to as libertarians have children or close family in schools right now. So that's great. One final area I'd like to talk about with you, and then I want to give all of you a chance to just give kind of a quick minute or so stump speech with shameless self-promotion of your social media. But economic development, in many states like Rhode Island, we've got this overarching failed quasi-public agency called the Commerce Corporation. They've managed to disseminate a lot of taxpayer money indiscriminately and with no clear goal in place other than to give the money away as quickly as possible, and no real track record of success. It's the unanimity of failure on every level is quite astonishing in and of itself, and really took a focus and an eye on the ball that I've almost got to give them credit for. To fail on that big a level takes work and effort. Pennsylvania, what in terms of local economic development, what have you seen in your respective communities? How are they doing it, and what's your quick thought? We'll go. Let's go with Nathan first on this one.
I mean, economically, I think our area is doing okay. After, COVID and all that, a lot of people moved out of New York City into the Poconos. So the Poconos is booming right now. I think we might be in a little bit of an exception because of that.
Right. Is the state, or is there a local economic development organization that's trying to direct development, or is it just pretty much open market, free market?
There is an economic development center. I forget. I think it's with the University of Scranton. So there is one in my district, and I'm not sure what all they're doing.
Okay. Who's up next? Who wants to jump in?
In my district, we just opened a casino in Greensburg, so that's a pretty significant economic development, I would say. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It just opened up, so.
How did people feel in the community about that? Is that state owned or is that privately owned?
It's privately owned. It's owned by the Rivers, I believe it's the same company that owns the casino in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And I think it's a mixed bag. I think you have people that are apprehensive about it. I think you have people that are excited about it. So it'll see. We'll see. It'll add a couple more jobs to the area. It remains to be seen how that pans out.
Were there any state subsidies involved or tax breaks, or did they just have to go out?
That's a good question. I am actually not sure if there were. I would not be surprised if there were, but I don't know that for a fact.
It's a potent area for exploration for libertarians.
Yeah,
because it's they call themselves free marketeers, but very often they're using what's called TIF style financing, or extensive tax incentives to subsidize this under if you will, under the guise of economic development. When in fact, as you pointed out, the verdict is decidedly mixed.
Right.
Who else do I have left on this? I think we've got.
It's just me.
Yep.
So economically, this district wasn't as impacted as some other districts I've seen as far as under the impacts of the COVID pandemic. There was a lot of work from home, but there was still a lot of jobs that were deemed essential. So there was still a fairly low unemployment rate, which I thought was great. And there is a fair bit of promotion and encouragement of local small businesses to get up, start up, and keep up. So that's actually one thing that's actually very positive that's come out of this, is that their resources that do exist for the small businesses are being promoted and are helping the small businesses, which I would love to continue at a much higher rate once elected.
Right. Let's talk about, let's give each of you, and we'll start out with Robb, and then we'll go to Nate, and then we'll go to Tim. Just give us like about a minute and a half stump speech, if you will. Imagine if you're not facing libertarians, but you're in front of a town square. We'll do it old school, right? You've got a few hundred folks from town aptly listening to you, looking for your leadership, desperate for leadership at this point. Because let me tell you, there's not a lot of profiles of courage running wild in the halls of state houses. We have a saying here in Providence, Rhode Island, where I am, in the halls of justice. Justice is in fact often found in the halls. So why don't you go first and just give us like about a minute stump speech, as if we were all folks in your community, kind of hanging on every word.
Yeah, so I come from a marketing background, and I like to deal with things from a mission perspective. So when I'm working on projects, I like to try and define the mission, set the North Star, and you work toward that. And I think the Libertarian Party, I think we have a stronger North Star than either of the other two, either Democrats or Republicans. Our North Star is personal freedom. So when we're in a situation where we can influence law, our North Star is this going to restrict personal freedom, or is this going to give us more personal freedom? And I think that makes us more transparent than either of the other two parties. And I think that's one of the things that I really love about the Libertarian Party, is that strong core, that strong mission of personal liberty.
Excellent. Excellent. Tell us where folks can find you on the web, both to donate and to, and just to build a base of folks connected to you in the liberty movement nationwide, so that as you move through your political work, you're in touch with people, you're able to reach out to them, seek help when you need it, and offer it when it's asked.
Sure. So you can go to my website, www.robb2bs.com. And actually, right on the homepage, I have a video there. If you listen to that video and respond to it, your response will go straight to my phone, and I'll be able to respond back to you personally. So I really want to leverage technology. I really want to try and bridge the gap between the population and the people representing them in government. So I think technology is a great tool for that. So again, robbluther.com, Robb with 2 B's.
Excellent. Tim, why don't you head up next? Give us that little stump speech. Remember, your entire district is standing right in front of you, and you have no clothes on, right? Isn't that the old joke? But your entire district is standing in front of you. What do you want to say to them right now?
First and foremost, I am not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I am a concerned citizen who has seen the bloat and the corruption out of Harrisburg and out of Washington, D.C. for entirely too long. And I want to get this position because what I want to do is be an inspiration to others who can come behind me and can fight this fight and keep this fight for personal liberty and personal freedom going, that will have more energy and more time and probably more smarts than me, as I am just, I'm just a person. I'm just a regular person. And I think that is the biggest thing missing in Harrisburg right now, is that everyone that's there seems to have forgotten that they are there as a representative of the people. They are not there to serve their own interest or to serve their party interest. They forgot that they are there at the will of the people. And that's one thing that I will never forget while I'm there, is that I am there because of and for the people.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And where again can we find you on the web?
My website is tim2021.com, tim2021.com, or Facebook. The page is at McMaster for PA48.
Excellent. And who's left? Who do you have up next?
That's me.
Nathan, Nate, go right ahead, please.
Okay. I think, my track record speaks for itself. So if anyone wants to look me up, I've got a few articles that I wrote as auditor. So you can look up some of the things that I've been doing already in my local town. One of the first articles that I wrote was titled, "This is not an audit of my township," which is a play on what Elon Musk did with his flamethrower when he named it not a flamethrower. It definitely was a flamethrower. He said it wasn't. My audit article basically was a discovery that our township was not having an audit done where the CPA firm posts their opinion on the audit. So that was one of the first things that I wrote, and it seemed to get a lot of good response and good traction. One of the other articles that I wrote was, "Did you know that our township owns a street sweeper?" And that was a fun one because the following year that street sweeper was out sweeping the street in front of my house. So I have a lot of fun doing this stuff. I'm not scared to stir things up and to share the knowledge that I found. And then I also want to thank all the people in my corner. While I have some free time here, just to list off the names: Jen Moore, Adam Reinhart, Michelle Marino, Joel Getz, Bonnie Flaherty, Steve Sheets, Dan Wassmer, Sam Robb, and Adam Reinsmith. Thanks to all those guys that have supported me also. And there's Michelle on the screen. Thank you.
No, and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, every week I sort of maintain the same thoughts, and it's proven to me truer and truer every week. Number one, I believe one of the most selfless acts, one of the most patriotic acts, short of being a member of our armed forces in defense of our nation, emphasis in defense, is to run for public office. It's a sacrifice of your personal time, your privacy, your space, very often your finances, your family time, and you're giving to the community in a way that the founders of this nation, I think, ultimately envisioned government participation to mean. So win or lose, your act of running is not only just an act of sacrifice, it's a political act unto itself. Anytime a libertarian in this nation stands up, looks to their community, and evokes a description of and a living confirmation of our libertarian philosophy, we grow as a movement. I will always invoke what I call the sharp way, if you will. You're planting the seed. You're creating a thought. You're creating an identity for people that may have not existed. For many folks like yourself, you running for office as a libertarian, you may be the very first libertarian someone ever actually meets in the flesh. Someone who's not a character, someone who is not just a conversation and a talking head show, but a real embodiment of self-ownership, someone respecting minority rights, the ultimate rights of the minority, the individual, someone who respects the role of government in your community, sees yourself not as someone who as governor rules, but sees yourself as someone who is a steward of community assets, working in cooperation on behalf of your community. And so I applaud your efforts. You're running serious campaigns, and that's why I wanted to have you on here tonight. And regardless of the outcome, make this just another step in that journey. The nation needs you, your families need you, your community needs you. It's that important. So again, all of you, best of luck, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Pat.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. We're going to take a break. We're going to bring Sasha Cohen. I think, is he in the waiting room? He is. We're going to bring him right
Pat.
up. Hey, guys, stay on board. You can, Sasha, I told you when I first met you this past summer, and Sasha and I have met in the ultimate libertarian battleground. We were getting signature petitions. That's sort of in the trenches, isn't it, for libertarian guys? It doesn't.
Absolutely.
All right, standing in 100+ degree weather on the mean streets, the mean blue Soviet workers' paradise, otherwise known as Rhode Island, and it was an experience. Sasha, congratulations. You had to hold off a last-minute insurgent move. The community that you woke up to the fact that, ruh-roh, Houston, we have a problem. We're about to elect a libertarian. Tell us about the last couple of weeks of your campaign. We were in touch with you just a few weeks ago on this show. I know you had a number of folks parachute in for your help, particularly on your social media side. Give us the sort of lowdown, and I want you to relish the victory and spike the football.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I had realized that this was going to be tougher than we expected when my opponent started to get some support and get some funding from some of the political insider class here in town. So I put out an all hands on deck call, and I ended up lucking into one of the best activists in the party, Caitlin Cloven, who agreed to come on for the last month and manage my race, not only running my social media, redesigning my entire website, creating all of my literature, prospecting donors, but actually driving here to the middle of nowhere, Illinois, from where she lives in Ohio, 3 weekends in a row to knock doors and hang lit. It was an absolute godsend to have her, and then to have volunteers from all over the state of Illinois. We had folks come down from downstate that drove hours and hours to come up. We have folks that took the train out from Chicago. And with their help and the help of donors and supporters and folks that gave me time to interview, like you, to really hone my answers and get better at speaking on camera, we got the result that we wanted. Tuesday night, the votes came in, and as of now, with maybe 100 mail-in votes that still haven't been counted, the race has been called. I'm up 2,270 some odd votes to 490. It's an 83% victory.
Hallelujah. Listen, you have worked tirelessly for a few years now on behalf of the cause, literally crisscrossing the nation. I can't think of anyone right now who deserves success more than you do. And so congratulations. You mentioned offline about you did some, and Caitlin, I guess, brought this in with other folks' help. You did some texting. How did that all work out? And how did the process go?
Yeah, we decided to take a new track, something that I really hadn't seen anybody do before, and try and lean into that sort of millennial Gen Z texting and meme culture. So we bought a list of every voter from 18 to 21 in the city that had voted in the last November election. These aren't people that you'd really expect to turn out for a municipal election that has a 15 to 25% turnout. They're not your reliable voters, but they're the folks that we knew cared just enough to have come out in November. And we sent them a text that read as follows. Nobody, absolutely nobody, me. You know there's an election on Tuesday. Vote April 6th. And it got an unbelievable response. We had so many people text back to say, hey, I didn't even know there was an election, or I wasn't going to vote, but that was funny as hell. I might go now. And it was just incredible to see how taking a funny track really worked. You know, a lot of people think that the way that we win is by putting on a suit and a tie and playing this respectability politics game, not making jokes, not being one of the clowns. Well, I don't think that's right. I think we can be comical, we can be funny, we can be outside of what people see as a normal politician and still win with, voters that wouldn't have otherwise come out.
How important is building coalitions amongst voter bases based on commonality on certain issues, particularly issues that are important to your community?
Oh, it's everything. Issue-based coalitions are how we get the votes that we need. The reality is there are not that many registered libertarian voters or even philosophically libertarian voters in our communities yet. 83% of DeKalb voters are not libertarians, but 83% of DeKalb voters had some kind of issue that I was able to connect with them on, whether it was talking to the left about the need for systemic reform in criminal justice, or talking to an environmental group about how deregulating zoning would make it easier for co-ops and communes to form. When we take these issues and we come at them from a principled libertarian stance in a way that demonstrates how much we care and how much we are interested in their problems and the things they see as important, people will connect with that and it will earn us support.
I'm going to cut that piece of the show and I'm going to play it over and over and over and over again. If we expect as a party and a philosophy to be able to convert everyone first before they then go and vote for us, we're going to be waiting a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
We do not have to sacrifice our principles to find common ground in this nation to bring liberty to us in our lifetime. We just don't. But we need to make it work. And silos don't get you elected.
Absolutely.
They're great conversation fodder, but silos do not get you elected. And what was that? 80? How much? What was it? 80? How much percent?
83%
of actual voters. So this was, despite the sort of unique nature of how the candidacies were made up, an overwhelming amount of votes represented real people getting up that morning or leaving work that afternoon and making a point on a typically underutilized election. I don't know if that's a good word or not, but an underrepresented election.
Absolutely.
All right. They made it a point. And how many other candidacies were on the ballot? Was this?
This was the full municipal. So there was mayor, multiple aldermen, school board, parks board,
Right.
township, and all of the other assorted elections. And I was actually lucky enough to work with some of those other candidates. 3 of the school board candidates dropped off my literature along with their own, and I dropped off their literature in neighborhoods.
So this was not an election where you just happen to be there and you got a couple thousand people motivated to run, as if that's some easy task, right? This was an election where your opponent had ample opportunity to get the selection, if you will, of the typical mainstream candidates. This was not a giveaway in any sense of the word. So there's a lot. This is an election, like a number of elections recently won, that need to be studied and reflected upon, because there's no one solution that's going to work in every candidacy, every district, every state, every municipality. There just isn't. But Absolutely. To ignore the approach, the strategy, the execution of this, we do so at our own peril. Quite frankly, we do so at our own demise. So
100%.
So congratulations, my friend. God bless.
Thank you.
And to all the folks who sacrificed time, Ms. Cloven, again, who is achieving near legendary status at this point, in her efforts nationwide, single-handedly, along with her associates, through sheer force of will, at times it appears, making things simply work. Whew, we could use a whole lot more of that, couldn't we? Oh, wow. Again, lad, congratulations. And I wanted to make sure that you appeared on this show. You've been on a couple times. You've been nice enough to parachute into Rhode Island to help us out. You've been on some of my own personal media at times just to contribute to the conversation. I'm very happy for you. God bless you, lad.
Always happy to be on. Thanks, Pat.
All right. So we're gonna close off of this evening. As usual, the show went long, but we had 3 excellent candidates from Pennsylvania who deserve your attention, your support, and both philosophical, if at all possible, financial. I know these are desperate times for a lot of folks who are suffering. But if you're in a position, any one of these candidates that you heard from tonight or in the last few weeks could certainly use your support. And every week I'll point out a couple of things. Number one, those checks that can come in of any size from different parts of the country that seemingly arrive out of the blue. More than one candidate has told me that on a day which was a tough day, it may have been raining and they had to do an arcing anyway. They may have had a tough day at work, which meant they couldn't get out to campaign. It always seems like the checks out of the blue come to you on that day, which you're just, you just want to go home and hide in bed. And yet somebody from this movement reaches out and sends some love across the nation, and it means all the difference in the world. A, we need the money. B, we need the love. And again, for all of those folks who doubt that we don't have a bench or we're not going in the right direction, I would say balderdash. The people that you are meeting on this show virtually are the very people who 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now are going to be successfully running for high office. And I'm convinced at least a couple of the people that you'll meet on this show in the past year and in coming months will end up being presidential candidates for your Libertarian Party. Thank you for joining us tonight. Monday night, we're going to spend some time with our affiliates. This time, the folks from the great state of Tennessee are going to be visiting us. That's at 9:00 here on LPTV. We've extended our programming to two nights a week. Folks, we've got 7 nights or 5 nights or 6 nights a week of programming on this. There's great stuff going on here all the time, and we're glad that you joined us. So you've been listening to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Joe Bishop, Henchman Chairman. John Gapso, as always, is the guy on the board a couple of nights a week now, volunteering his time. He's the one who brings it up and researches the graphics. He's the one who holds it all together. My name is Pat Ford. I've been your host. It is a privilege to spend time with libertarians on a Friday evening, both you and both the fine candidates we've had. We'll see you Monday night. Have a wonderful weekend.